What is the pocket that is exciting you right now? Because we've seen a fair amount of run-up valuations, and that question about valuation is back in the picture after about 6 months. Are you finding IT as an underappreciated pocket, or is that story done and dusted? Real estate, defense, consumer, what is exciting you right now?
So, I mean, there are two sectors where we have been overweight from almost the beginning of 2024, and over time, at least pharma and healthcare has become more overweight. So that in terms of relative to the index, that's probably the sector we would be most overweight in. And also, as I said, auto components would be somewhat overweight. In terms of IT, we would be slightly overweight. We're not like taking a huge bet, but yes, I mean, I'm reasonably fine with IT, and that's a relatively predictable sector, which I think is underappreciated. That this is one of the sectors where, at least to some extent, you can say how the trajectory would be relative to many others. I mean, of course, there might be like a 2% point plus minus, but even that much of predictability is rarely there in any sector. In the last couple of rebalances where our systems have started liking, and therefore we have been buying stocks, is FMCG. So FMCG now we would be relatively overweight, and not always in the largest companies, but there are a whole lot of names in that that have been coming up and that we have been buying. So that's definitely a sector that looks good. Real estate, we rarely take a significant bet, and that's a very risky sector, and there's been a lot of, as far as the buyers are concerned, there's been a lot of speculative activity. I mean, I'm talking the actual buyers of the real estate, not the stock buyers. So that's
Devina, I want to press on the FMCG question, because that is sort of a relatively unloved space, slow and steady, but doesn't really do much. What are you seeing as a differentiator here or a change? If you can just talk a bit more about why FMCG.
So actually, Tavana, this is the strange part. I mean, in 2020, it was the most beloved space. And then I had done actually a whole half-an-hour program on one of the business channels saying, just because you think the business is steady doesn't mean the stocks give steady returns. And there's a whole lot of history behind that. And so many times, long periods when they don't perform. And now it's come to the other side that, not worth looking at. So, but even in terms of fundamental, there are a couple of things that have changed. One, inflation is under control. So food inflation in particular, if you look at last couple of years, with the food inflation being that high and India being a relatively poor country, in a household budget, if dal and oil and all these prices go up, it actually crowds out the soaps and the shampoos. So there's relief on that side. Consumption, again, people started talking about a consumption slowdown when after September, when the market corrected. But the real consumption slowdown was in 23-24. That year, in the GDP, the private consumption number was at a 21-year low. It grew less than 4%, I think 3.8 or something like that. So actually, 24-25 consumption has accelerated. Also, this is on the top line side. So provided we have a decent monsoon, it's a good space. The other part is the margins. Again, some edible oils and which are used in FMCG, the prices have gone down. Crude is a big thing because ultimately a lot of downstream petrochemicals are used. Of course, they're used not just in FMCG, they're used in a whole lot of other industries as well. So on both the revenue side and the margin side, I think on the margin, the news is good. And as I said, the sector has not done well for a very long time. So on all our parameters, now it's coming up.